Greetings, traveller from beyond the fog.
You see that mountain? You can go there. A timeless cliche that is emblematic of the open world game design that dominated much of the last generation. Vast maps that would take an age to traverse with little of consequence along the way. That's why the Dark Souls series felt like such a revelation. Sure, if you looked into the distance and saw an imposing castle, chances were that you were going to find your way there eventually, but in order to get there you'd have to fight through caverns, bogs and towns littered with the undead. The journey was always meaningful and bespoke. Elden Ring provides the Dark Souls formula with its biggest challenge yet, a genuine attempt at an open world version of the series, and from what we've played, it pulls it off spectacularly.
Oh yes. Tarnished, are we? Come to the lands between for the Elden Ring, Of course you have. No shame in it.
Elden Ring begins with the player finding themselves in a dark cave, seemingly an intentional move to give the player a bit of comfort before their preconceived notions about the genre are challenged. There's a small offshoot of the cave which serves as a tutorial and a helpful reminder for even those who have suffered the long journey from Anor Londo all the way to Yharnam. You can skip this on future visits to the lands between, heading straight for the imposing door that stands in front of you. It's here when you enter the lands between for the first time that From Software reinforces just how much of an open world game Elden Ring is. The music swells, the landscape opens in front of you, and you see castles and glowing trees dominate the skyline. If that sounds like the opening to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, then you've grasped exactly what From Software is trying to tell you. Returning to the Souls series are the bonfires at which you can level up, arrange your abilities and manage other aspects of your character. You can also choose to wait until another point in the day-night cycle, something that didn't have much effect during our preview, but the possibilities of what a team like From Software could do with such a mechanic are really intriguing. The bonfires, in Elden Ring called Sites of Grace, also provide respite from the brutal enemies that populate the world, allowing you to replenish your health and refill your various flasks. They'll also point you in the direction of your main objective, although not with a large exclamation point flashing somewhere in the distance. A faint wisp of golden light aims in the general direction of your next foe. Once we'd entered the world, spoken to the NPC and took a look around, we were stuck and frankly overwhelmed by where to go next. Generally in a Souls game, you know that on the path forward it's unlikely that you're going to run into something that's completely impossible for you to beat. Sure, there are some enemies like the Knights and Demon Souls that are tough, but even then they are beatable. But in an open world setting, it's impossible to know if you're going to run into the wrong part of town and suddenly have those precious runes, Elden Ring's equivalent to souls, stolen from you. Sure, you can follow the golden path, but that doesn't tell you how to navigate the journey towards the boss, only giving you a rough idea, so with no other option, we went exploring. The version we were playing was the same that those that managed to get into the closed network test will experience, but without the time limits. We had the same choice of 5 classes and the same limitations on the map. The first area we found was in a small cave off to the left of the main path. Even in this closed network test, there was a surprising number of smaller sub-areas, almost microcosms of the old level system of Dark Souls games. Usually these involve a small puzzle and a few enemies before reaching a mini-boss. They're still tough as nails, but they usually have less health, probably to make the player feel like they're getting a few small wins on the journey to taking down a larger foe.
Torrent has chosen you. Treat him with respect.
In a first for the series, you're given a horse to ride around on. The spectral steed can be used in open areas and is mostly for getting across the vast plains of the open world. The combat in Elden Ring will be familiar to anyone who's played a Souls game. You're parrying, you're rolling to the side and you're backstabbing. There's also a plethora of magic if you're so inclined to build your character that way. As is traditional, it feels like magic is slightly overpowered. We managed to find a sword with a lightning based special attack which took down basically anything with ease. Also, the sheer number of enemies in the overworld makes leveling up a very fast process, which may help players who find the difficulty slightly overwhelming. On the other hand, accidentally over-leveling seems more likely than ever. Player invasions and the cooperative elements of the Souls games make a return, making even the toughest bosses slightly easier. Bloodstains and messages on the ground are also in Elden Ring, although we almost wish they'd taken a slightly different form. This feels like a natural departure for the series, so we thought they would maybe take the opportunity to make some more changes. The biggest changes are in the broad scale of the world, the sheer volume of things to do, and the huge increase in the number of items you'll encounter in the world, but these small things still make Elden Ring feel like home. If you manage to make it through to the end of the closed network test, including a fight with an extremely tough boss, you'll make it to a small section of a castle, the inside of which will feel eerily similar to the Boletarian Palace from Demon's Souls. That's the thing about Elden Ring so far. It has echoed the Souls series without ever feeling like it's a compilation of the best bits strung together by an open world. The open world feels crucial to the entire experience. I have no idea how long it'll take to see everything in Elden Ring, but if the closed network test is anything to go by, it'll be the kind of game you finish, go back to, and find a whole new dungeon and boss that you'd completely walked past on your first adventure. It makes an incredibly strong impression with a great art style second only to the undisputed champion, Bloodborne. Only the full release will tell just how open the game is, and if there are more large sprawling areas like the opening fields. It's in these areas and the dark caves hidden by well-placed doors that Elden Ring is shining. The only issue we've seen so far is that if a player decides to mop up everything around them before heading off to the next story critical boss, they may find it a much easier prospect than From Software intended.